Hi, something that came up in a conversation recently was the idea that, you know, we're doing something wrong if we're not if we've got character traits that aren't right. We don't like them and they should be better, or, who is it that's actually saying that we're flawed or have issues? If you look for that, it's the same as what's being expressed. So how can this criticize itself, really? All character traits are all the same as what's being expressed everywhere. So you are also expressing as emotions that aren't right or supposedly aren't right in the human mind. It's all concepts from the human mind trying to say it should be like this or it shouldn't be like that. And they're invalid. They don't mean anything. They only mean something to the thinking mind that thinks that way, which is also just part of this expression, part of that human being. I've mentioned before the iceberg, with the complexity of the subconscious mind firing off all these ideas and reasons for reacting a certain way. You got no idea really what's happening in that 95% of the subconscious and the mind that's just responding in a certain way. So there can be an awakening in that conscious slither of attention, that conscious mind, but really what's going on in the whole, even when we're just talking about the mind, the individuated mind of this localized form called a biology, called a body, called a human being, it's still that's just we're only looking at that as a separate piece almost, but it's not. That's not separate. It's almost an interactive transponder for the whole. So who knows the complexity with which this body and mind is interacting with the whole that it isn't separate from. It's just a localized version with senses and perceptions that create this illusion that this is doing it, that this body is doing it. This body is doing it in a way because the sensations and perceptions are happening as this human body perceives them. But really that's the whole. It's awareness perceiving itself through a human body. The double slit experiment, I always go back to it. It's such an interesting one because until it's observing itself, until awareness, consciousness, life, whatever, is observing itself, it doesn't come out of potentiality. It doesn't have to decide what it's going to be until it observes itself. So it kind of needs this pseudo-separation, this apparent separation of energy to express, to manifest, to appear in form, to appear. Otherwise, everything just stays as infinite complexity in potentiality. So it is that as well. So absolute miracle the way it all works. Even that's a word. Every word is just a quantification, but it's never separated into any of this. It's never linear. It's completely fluid, open, infinitely complex, beautiful, loving, and constantly changing, and always now, apart from memories that categorize past or projections of thought that create an idea of future. But all of those things are just now, with memories, thoughts, all these things. In fact, the entity that feels like being I is just memories. It's just made of memories and interpretations, made of memories and projections. I mean, amazing that the mind can do that. That this universe, and that's just that even that sounds finite, but this universe can do this. This energy can do this. Unbelievably complex, beautiful. And when all of that's kind of allowed or opened to, even allowed, it's like who's allowing it? It's part of the whole. But when that's kind of opened to with this human perception, I suppose, without knowing, without having to know, but the flow of curiosity still seems to be there, but in an open sense. So things just appear, never really quantified, finitely known, but there's a much broader intuitive knowing of what's going on, sort of powerful flow of intellect through a human form, which doesn't really, it's almost like the double slit experiment. It doesn't need to get to an end result until it needs to. That's another way to sort of leaving it open, unformed, undecided, and that is almost like a quantum flow of life approaching problems, just practical problems in life, and seems to be effortless, peaceful, more joyful, and quite powerful to get results without really knowing what the outcome is going to be. When things just happen and they happen perfectly, that seems to happen more when life's allowed to flow.